When I was about to die, the family that once adopted me found me. They asked me to donate a kidney to their biological daughter. I refused. After all, they were the ones who owed me. Why should I repay this so-called kindness? I lay on the somewhat saggy couch in the living room, with scenes from earlier replaying in my mind. Under the warm lights, the family, all four of them, sat on the couch laughing and talking. I used to be one of them. But now, I stood at the doorway, like an outsider, watching the cozy family scene. My spot had been taken by another girl. Her face beamed with glee, and her eyes sparkled with joy. When she looked at me, her eyes were filled with undisguised jealousy and scrutiny. I stood there, feeling uneasy, hiding the cake behind my back. Today was the day my parents adopted me, and I treated it as my birthday. My brother sat beside the girl, his face full of concern. He seemed to have forgotten he promised to come home early to celebrate my birthday. Jenny is back. Come here, this is Coco, our lost daughter. You can call her sister, said Mom. Mom stood up, her usually stern face now showing a rare smile. I knew she had been on edge because of the layoff rumors at her company, worried she might be cut. This was the happiest I had seen her in a long time. I was stunned by Mom's words, an overwhelming sense of dread engulfed me, and I felt something was about to change. And I was right. Dad stood up and lovingly told the girl on the couch, now that Jenny is back, I'll ask her to tidy up and share half the room with you. I stood there, unsure of what to do, but I mumbled, okay, I'll do it now. Dad, I want my own room. I'm scared to have someone sleep beside me. A timid voice broke the silence. It was Coco. Dad hesitated for a moment, glanced at me, and asked, Jenny, what do you think? I ignored the subtle challenge in Coco's eyes and said, all right, Dad, I'll sleep on the couch tonight. Seeing my understanding, Dad visibly relaxed. That's good, that's good. He didn't mention where I would go next, whether it would be my original room or the old, saggy couch. I didn't dare to ask or even speak out because I knew I wasn't their biological child. I knew I was adopted. My foster mother's biological daughter went missing when she was 3, leading to her severe mental illness. I was brought in as a remedy suggested by the doctor. I remember being terrified when I first joined the family, clutching my only stuffed animal, refusing to let go despite my foster mother's coaxing. It was the only thing other than myself I had from when I was a baby. She didn't lose patience. Her face, usually stern, looked very gentle under the lamp's light. Jenny, don't be afraid, you have a home now. I'm your mom. This stuffed animal is dirty. Let me wash it for you and return it, okay? I felt her kindness. It was so warm and bright. I threw myself into her arms, crying, feeling a semblance of the motherly love often talked about in the orphanage. But those seemingly warm days were short-lived. Once her illness improved, I became dispensable. I walked on eggshells, trying to please everyone and maintain a facade of warmth. But I never thought this fake sense of familial love would be shattered. The next morning, with slight dark circles under my eyes, I went to the kitchen. Because my parents worked hard and my brother was busy job hunting, I took on the task of making breakfast. Sure enough, this gesture made my parents and brother praise me for being sensible. Their compliments made me happy because if they needed me, they wouldn't send me away. With my foster mother getting better, my presence became less necessary. I desperately needed something to prove my worth to this family. But I never imagined that if I woke up late, someone else would jump in to make breakfast. I silently watched the busy figure in the kitchen. Coco's hands were rough but skilled, shaping tiny, adorable pastries. Far beyond what I could do in 2 years of making breakfast. Noticing my gaze, she turned around, her eyes filled with hostility. You're the girl my mom adopted after she got sick? She asked bluntly. I nodded, accepting her sudden hostility. The narrow kitchen felt like a confined space, the tense atmosphere thick between us. I understood her hostility. She thought I had taken her family, her everything. She looked me over, then with malicious intent, said, Did you know if I hadn't gone missing, you wouldn't have gotten into this family? Her words left me speechless, fumbling for words but unable to refute. Privileged, going to school, with fair skin and delicate hands, not needing to struggle for a living, you know how hateful that makes you look. Her voice rose to a near scream, veins bulging on her neck from the exertion. I stood there, frightened, taking in her years of pent-up frustration and anger. But I wasn't the one who made you go missing. What? She leaned closer, not understanding my words. I mustered my courage, trying to stand my ground. I said it wasn't my fault you went missing. I didn't come to replace you. I have worked hard for this family too. Shut up. Just shut up. You call that contribution? She glared at me with venomous eyes. I couldn't understand why she hated me so much. Hearing our voices, Dad, Mom, and my older brother all came out of their rooms. Coco's expression changed instantly. The speed of her change was astonishing. I didn't mean to take your room. Dad told me to sleep there. Don't be mad. I'll give it back to you. Mom walked to Coco's side, holding her shoulders and giving me a guarded look. What's going on here? I didn't. Mom, don't give her a hard time. Maybe she couldn't sleep well on the couch. I'll give her the room back. I can sleep anywhere, even in a straw hut. Mom shot me a fierce glare and didn't wait for my explanation before condemning me. Coco, this is your home, that's your room. Nobody can take it from you. Who said she couldn't sleep well? When she was in the orphanage, she didn't even have a proper bed. Everything she has now is from our family. She owes you. Her words felt like a heavy hammer smashing my skull, making me see stars. I couldn't believe that this hard-won family bond was as fragile as a balloon, ready to burst at any moment. I went to school feeling lost, haunted by Dad and Mom's wary gazes. Even my usually doting brother looked at me as if I were a stranger. I grabbed my backpack and ran out of the house, not even stopping to change my shoes. In the freezing winter weather, I ran to school in a pair of sandals. It wasn't until a pair of hands stopped me that I snapped back to reality. Looking up, I saw a pair of amber eyes filled with worry. Jenny, are you okay? Why are you wearing sandals to school? Aren't you cold? Only when he mentioned it did I realize my feet hurt. Meeting his eyes, my pent-up tears finally flowed freely. Henry, I don't have a home anymore. I blurted out my distress, and he wrapped me in his arms. Don't cry, Jenny. From today on, I'll be your family. I'll take care of you. His words were so firm, it felt like I was his most precious treasure. I thought he would be my last safe harbor. I had no idea others would eventually inhabit that harbor too. When Henry was little, he was the biggest kid in our community. His parents were longtime friends with Coco's parents. When I first arrived at Coco's house, Coco's mom always asked Henry to take me out to play, saying I needed to interact with more kids my age. I don't want to take this tag along. What's she holding? It's so ugly. Henry's face was full of disdain, making me feel like some kind of dirty thing. I hid behind Coco's mom, not wanting to play with this pretty but ill-tempered kid. Ouch, ouch. Henry's face got pinched by a pair of slender, pale hands. You brat. Is this how I taught you to talk to girls? The owner of those hands had beautiful eyes, though their color was the same as Henry's. They were filled with gentleness. She dragged me out from behind Coco's mom and spoke softly. You must be Jenny. You're so cute, I already like you, dear. She pulled out a huge teddy bear from behind her. This bear is for you, Jenny. Now you have another friend. What's so great about it? Henry turned his head away, but I saw him still watching me from the corner of his eye. From then on, I liked Henry's mom but still didn't like Henry. I thought my relationship with Henry would never improve. One day, I washed a doll I had brought from the orphanage and hung it to dry on a clothesline by the apartment entrance. When I went to fetch it in the afternoon, it was gone. I searched the whole community entrance but couldn't find it. Suddenly, I heard noisy arguments. What's this piece of junk that Jenny holds so dear? Candy wanted to borrow it earlier, but she wouldn't even let her look at it. I want to see what's inside. Then I heard the sound of fabric ripping. I stumbled forward and saw two boys holding my doll, its stuffing spilling out. I rushed over, grabbed one of the boys, and snatched my doll back. The other boy, furious, threw the doll to the ground and pushed me. Who wants this piece of trash anyway? I braced myself for the fall, but it didn't come. Hey! Chris, if you lay a finger on her, you're dead meat. A furious voice came from behind me. I recognized it as Henry's. I turned to see him charging at them like a bullet. Even though he was outnumbered, he managed to get my doll back. With a cut on his forehead and limping, he awkwardly wiped my tears. Here. Don't cry. I got it back for you. Let's go to my mom, she'll sew it up good as new. I burst into laughter, and he blushed deeply, stammering, "What's so funny?" Then he too broke into a shy smile. After that, Henry and I became inseparable, and our classmates started teasing that I was his little bride. Henry's mom even started calling me her daughter-in-law. I thought our bond was unbreakable. But less than a month later, he looked at me like I was his enemy. "Jenny, you've changed. I never thought you were this kind of person." I was this kind of person? We've known each other for 15 years, and you're just now figuring out what kind of person I am? In just a month, Coco managed to push me out of the house. I used the scholarship money I saved up over the years to get a dorm at school. I only came home on weekends, forced to watch the family that once gave me love. My brother gave the phone he promised me for my birthday to Coco. He smiled indulgently and taught her how to use it. When she said with guilt, "What can I do? I'm too dumb. I've never used electronics like Jenny," he patted her head tenderly. "It's okay, Coco. You're my real sister. I'll save the good stuff for you." My brother turned around, saw me at the door, and said matter-of-factly, "Jenny's back. Give Coco the camera I gave you before. She wants it." I was taken aback. I didn't expect my brother to ask me to hand over the only gift he ever gave me so easily. That was the only gift he'd given me. I had been his sister for 15 years. I thought even if we weren't blood related, our bond couldn't just disappear, right? But looking at his unyielding profile, I could no longer deceive myself. I heard myself calmly say, "Okay, I'll get it now. Good girl, I'll be here. Now go quickly." He scratched his head, just about to persuade me, before realizing I agreed, looking a bit surprised. I turned around, laughing at myself. How could I have the right to refuse? My parents would take my brother and Coco out for meals during my holidays. I stood in the cold house, with a heart filled with emptiness and chill. When they returned, my mom looked at me somewhat guiltily and said, "Jenny, I forgot you were on break today. The power went out, so I didn't cook. We took your brother and sister out to eat. Are you hungry? Do you want me to make something for you?" Before I could reply, my dad said impatiently, "Why bother? There are 2 packs of instant noodles in the cabinet. Let her make do with that. Why be so spoiled? Aren't you the one who used to starve? Now you're acting all pampered." So this is what words that pierce the heart feel like. Mom pinched Dad's arm, gave him a look, but still sat on the couch, not moving an inch. Why go through the trouble? Give her some money. Let her eat out. My brother took out $10 from his pocket. When I didn't reach out for it, he threw it at my feet. The bill fell lightly, as if dropping the familial love with it. "No thanks, I have money." I stared at the bill, then turned and walked out of the house. What's with the attitude? Acting like we owe her something. If we hadn't adopted her, would she even get to go to school? Enough, stop talking. I shut the door on their endless complaints. It turns out, I no longer had a home. Memories flooded back, laughter, affection, happiness. If only I had never felt warmth, then at least it wouldn't hurt as much now. I thought I was already at the edge of a cliff. But Coco made me fall directly into the abyss. Just as I entered the community, I heard a familiar voice. Getting closer, I saw it was Henry. I was about to greet him but saw Coco beside him. They were talking, Henry smiling, looking very familiar with each other. For some reason, I stayed silent. Is that game console from you? How did you know I wanted it for so long? Coco shyly fiddled with her fingers. Nothing much, Jenny told me. She said you wanted it but couldn't afford it. I saved up some money and did a part-time job to get it for you. I hope you don't mind. Henry was stunned. Jenny told you? Coco seemed confused. Yeah, she even mentioned your dad cheated and your mom committed suicide. You haven't been happy these years. I was shocked and immediately stepped out. I never said that. Jenny, what are you doing here? Ignoring Coco's murderous glare, I focused on Henry. I knew too well how much his mother meant to him and how deep this scar was. Jenny, did you really tell others about this? Henry stared at me, eyes filled with unreadable emotions. I felt inexplicably cold, but had no time to care. I grabbed his arm. I never said it. You have to believe me. Oh really? Then how would she know? Only 3 people know this secret. My dad cares about his reputation. He wouldn't tell anyone. And I wouldn't spread my family's shame. The only other person who knows is you. Jenny, I trusted you so much. You really let me down. He slowly shook his head, disappointment written all over his face. He brushed off my grip and walked into the night. I turned to look at Coco. Her face was twisted and excited. Jenny, you must be curious how I found out, right? But I won't tell you. Even though I can't make you suffer like I did, you don't deserve anything that belongs to me. I ignored Coco's bitter words and was heartbroken that Henry believed someone else's words. Not wanting to hear my explanation, I rubbed my increasingly painful stomach, struggling to straighten up. But there was something important I had to do today. I couldn't afford to collapse now. Returning home, Coco had already entered the house. I ignored her subtle glances. Calmly, I said, Mom, I want to sign up for a tutoring class. It costs $2,000. Can I get my saved-up scholarship money? Mom's face turned somber. Didn't you give that scholarship money to me? What's yours is the family's money. No need to distinguish between us. Furthermore, all these years you lived here for free, didn't contribute financially, yet you have the nerve to ask to come back? Our family has supported you for so long without getting anything in return. Do you feel no shame? Besides, you're an adult now. We've done everything we could for you. From now on, you're on your own. We can't afford to support 2 college students. Pack up and leave. The familiar face twisted into a furious expression. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. In the days that followed, I returned to school with my luggage and had to work part-time to make ends meet. I didn't even get a chance to contact Henry. One day, I saw him outside the school gate. Excited to greet him, I saw him walking into the campus with a girl beside him. When he noticed me, he looked at me like I was a stranger. Coco, the girl next to him, spoke first. Hey, Jenny, long time no see. How have you been? She asked with a smile before casually explaining, Henry's helping me with my enrollment paperwork. Our moms wanted him to look after me since our families are neighbors. Henry agreed, so he came by bicycle to pick me up this morning, she added smugly. I stared at Henry in shock. He had let Coco ride his bike, the last gift from his mom that he cherished once. I accidentally knocked it over, and he was furious. Now Coco was riding it. I ignored Coco's smug face and looked at Henry's impassive expression. Won't you even listen to my explanation? I asked. He said nothing and fiddled with the bike bell I had given him when I won my first scholarship. The bell, which once meant so much to him, fell to the ground, covered in dust. Henry looked at me coldly, without a glance, and said to Coco, let's go. Don't talk to people who don't matter. I stood there dumbfounded, picked up the bell, and held it in my hand. Tears streamed down my face. Not only did I lose my home, but now even the one person I treasured had left me. I looked around aimlessly, ignoring the curious stares, feeling that the world was so big, yet I had no place to call my own. Hello, are you Jenny? I snapped back to reality and saw a man in a suit. He didn't look like a customer. It was my second month working at a convenience store, trying to make enough for living expenses and tuition clearing his throat. He solemnly handed me a business card. "Hello, Miss Jenny. Do you want to know about your biological family? If you do, meet me at this restaurant at 11 a.m. on Saturday." I was stunned by the information and took a while to process it. Saturday morning, I sat in the restaurant mentioned on the card. The door opened, and a tall, lean teenage boy walked in. He looked wealthy and carried himself confidently. What shocked me most was how much we looked alike. Before I could speak, he said, surprised, "I could tell from the photo that we looked similar, but seeing you in person, we look even more alike." We did look alike, but only in our features. His face showed confidence, while my years of being adopted had given me a people-pleasing personality. I was insecure and guarded. "I'm Jack. You should be called Anne. I always thought I was an only child. Who knew I had an older sister?" Then he looked at me intently, "But unfortunately, you are very sick, a serious illness." I took the medical report from him and stared silently at the late-stage pancreatic cancer diagnosis. "If only you had come sooner," I mumbled. I'd long suspected my body wasn't well. The persistent low fevers and sudden stomach pains were warning signs. He didn't catch my words. "Why do you have to work to pay for your tuition?" The young man seemed a mix of confused and angry. I gave a bitter smile. I wasn't their biological child. They raised me out of kindness, and they found their real daughter now. Hearing this, he smirked coldly. "They dared? You don't even know who put you in the orphanage." I looked at him, stunned. "What do you mean by that?" "Exactly what I said. Read and see for yourself." I opened the documents Jack handed me, eager to understand. "When you were born, Dad was at a critical point in his project. A rival didn't want him to attend a bidding meeting, so they hired someone to kidnap you, planning to return you the next day, but the person who took you got drunk and lost you," he explained before I could even start reading the documents. "So, the person who took me was the one who adopted me?" I asked, astonished. His face darkened. "Mom was heartbroken after losing you. She passed away 2 years after having me. Dad almost gave up on life, but kept going with the hope of finding you. All these years, he never stopped searching. This time, I found you first while Dad was on a business trip." I saw the documents on his desk. "But I didn't expect you to be so ill." His voice choked with emotion. I walked up to him and hugged him. Though it was our first meeting, the bond between us felt real. Tears streamed down my face. With his head buried in my shoulder, he whispered through his tears, "I don't want to lose you." I felt lost and mumbled, "Don't cry. Maybe it's better to pretend you never found me." "No." He held me so tightly that I could hardly breathe. Everything in front of me was spinning, and then I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I had no idea what day or year it was. But I couldn't deny that the pain in my body seemed to have lessened. I had planned to save enough money for tuition and use the excess for a full body checkup. Now, I guess I saved that money, I thought, trying to find some humor in the situation. A soft sound came from the door. I turned to look at the person standing there. They seemed older, with a refined face etched with the marks of time. He was dressed in a dark suit without a tie, and what had been a neat hairstyle now appeared a bit disheveled. When our eyes met, his instantly turned red. As he spoke, his voice trembled, and hot tears rolled down uncontrollably. A strange yet familiar feeling told me that this person was my blood relative. I opened my mouth wide, unsure of what to do. He came closer, his red eyes full of heartache. "I'm Dad. I'm late, aren't I? Does it hurt a lot, kid?" I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer and flung myself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably, the pent-up emotions from the past few days finally released. I didn't let go until the doctor came for a checkup. The doctor was friendly but a bit stern. "Why did you come so late for treatment? The family is too irresponsible," he said, casting a blaming look at the man. The man in the suit stood there shamefully, letting the doctor scold him. Yes, I'm late. Doctor, let's talk outside. Hearing this, I grabbed his arm. Dad, it's okay, I know everything. His eyes lit up with joy at my calling him Dad, but immediately filled with immense sorrow at my words. In the end, he took the doctor out, coming back a while later. A smile appeared on his face. Dad checked with the doctor. As long as we do some chemotherapy and cooperate actively with the treatment, there's a good chance you'll be cured. Calling him Dad the first time broke the psychological barrier. Dad, don't worry about me. I knew my body wasn't doing too well for a while. I had planned to save enough for tuition and then go for a checkup at the hospital, but I guess I accidentally saved that medical checkup fee. Hearing my self-deprecating words, the tears my dad struggled to hold back fell again. Was the family that adopted you not good to you? Not exactly. Initially, I helped my adoptive mother deal with the pain of losing her daughter, and she was really good to me. But after she recovered, I became an insignificant part of the family. But they had adopted me, fed and clothed me, and paid for my schooling. I was still grateful. However, just 2 months ago, they found their biological daughter and I became the most awkward person in the family. I shrugged, trying to make light of the situation, but the pain in my heart made my back and abdomen hurt more. They kicked me out, saying they couldn't afford the tuition for 2 students. Even though I paid my own tuition with scholarship money, they didn't even return the money when I wanted to take extra classes this time. I couldn't help but feel a little wronged as I finished speaking. By the time I finished, Dad's face was dark with suppressed rage. They dare to abandon you? The ones who need to atone the most are them. From that day on, Dad and my brother took turns visiting me in the hospital. They never mentioned anything about themselves, and I didn't know what was happening outside. I started chemotherapy to reassure Dad and Jack. I began to suffer from insomnia, vomiting, and loss of appetite, day and night. The hair loss and changes in my skin color made me afraid to look in the mirror. Jack would bring a bouquet of fresh flowers every day, saying I looked better than the flowers. Seeing his shameless boasting made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. I can't say for sure if I look better than the flowers, but definitely better than the yellowed flowers in his hands. After the first phase of chemotherapy, I refused my father's company. I put on makeup to look normal, not wanting my old classmates to see my current state. I went alone to school to take a leave of absence. Walking on the school grounds, watching the students playing around, I felt a bit melancholic. I worked so hard to earn tuition money, but in the end, I didn't even set foot in a university. As I was feeling a bit sad, a voice suddenly came from behind. Jenny, is that you? I turned around to meet Henry's surprised eyes. It's really you. Where have you been all this time? Why did you lose so much weight? Henry looked at me excitedly, but the surprised expression on his face quickly turned to concern. Never mind about that now. Come with me quickly, Coco is sick and needs your help. As soon as he finished speaking, he grabbed my arm, but I easily freed myself from his loose grip. He turned back in shock. Jenny, what's wrong with you? Can't you even help with this small favor? I looked at him calmly, feeling like I was meeting him for the first time. What do you mean by a small favor, giving her a kidney? A few days ago, Coco's mom had called me, demanding I repay their years of raising me with a kidney. When I refused, she cursed me over the phone. He looked momentarily embarrassed but persisted. It's just a kidney. It won't affect you much. You owe them for taking you in. Can't you give back a little? I couldn't help but laugh and shake my head. I'm really curious, were you brainwashed? Don't you remember me? I was your childhood playmate, your best friend. How can a friendship of more than 10 years be weaker than the bond you formed with Coco in just 2 months? A flicker of impatience crossed his face. How can you blame me for this? You're the one who broke our trust first by spreading my secrets to others. How can I trust you didn't tell anyone else? Are you so sure it was me? Can you stop? There are people in the hospital waiting for you to save their lives. Why are you asking such pointless questions? Here's the deal. If you agree to donate a kidney to Coco, I'll forgive you. Deal? As soon as Henry finished talking, I burst out laughing. Henry, do you think you're that important? Who are you to me? What right do you have to ask me to donate a kidney to someone else? His face briefly showed embarrassment. What do you mean? Haven't you been chasing me, wanting my forgiveness? I could feel my strength quickly fading. I didn't have the energy to argue with him anymore. I waved my hand dismissively. Henry, let me say it again. Maybe I had feelings for you before, whether it was friendship or something else, but now, whatever I felt has been worn down by you, and there's no way I'd donate a kidney to someone just to get your forgiveness. How you choose, who you believe, that's all up to you. It's not important to me anymore. As far as I'm concerned, you don't matter anymore. Got it? Not caring about his shocked and embarrassed expression, I pushed past him and walked towards the school building. Before I could even get to the door, a strong force knocked me to the ground. Suddenly, loud cries reverberated in my ears. You ungrateful wretch, how could you ignore our gratitude and refuse to save us? I'll beat you to death. I shook my head, feeling a warm stream running from my nose. My hands scraped the ground, drawing blood, which I wiped unconsciously on my clothes. I instinctively tried to hide my disheveled state. The crying continued. We adopted you when you were 3. If it wasn't for us, you would have starved to death. Now we're just asking for a small favor, and you push us away. Wiping the blood from my nose, I looked up at the 3 people glaring at me with hatred. Really? You think I owe you something? How about I tell everyone the truth, and we let them judge? Because it was lunchtime, a crowd had gathered when Henry stopped me. Yes, I was adopted by you at 3, but wasn't it to treat your daughter's illness? But we raised you, sent you to school. What more do you want? Coco's father's face grew dark, clearly not expecting me to bring this up. Okay, let's say you did raise me. That doesn't mean I'm obligated to give your daughter a kidney. You want to know what I'm not happy about? Fine, I'll tell you. 3 years ago, I was stolen from my parents. I could have been reunited with them the next day, but the person who took me got drunk and lost me. Coco's father's face turned pale. You? Who are you? How do you know this? His face showed outright terror. Coco's mother looked puzzled at her husband's reaction. What does she mean? Does what Jenny says have anything to do with you? He didn't answer, just stared at me. Who told you this? How do you know it? So you admit it? I stared into his bloodshot eyes, seeing his shock. No. I didn't. Coco's father vehemently shook his head, denying it. I fought back my discomfort. Listen carefully. 18 years ago, during a bidding event, you were supposed to kidnap a child for a night in exchange for $50,000. But you got drunk and lost that child. The next day, fearing the family would call the cops and charge you with kidnapping, you moved your family overnight. Meanwhile, the person who hired you went to jail for tax evasion, and the child's whereabouts became a mystery. The family who lost their child was devastated. The mother died from grief. Does any of this ring a bell? Who are you? How do you know all this? Coco's father screamed, looking nearly insane. Henry stood there in shock, clearly processing everything I continued. My biological family told me. And coincidentally, that lost baby was me. As soon as I said this, Coco's father pushed away Henry's supportive hand, yelling, impossible. There's no way it's that coincidental. So, you admit it now? I waved my hand, and my brother appeared with 2 police officers. For the first time, I saw a cold expression on Jack's usually cheerful face. He stared at Coco's family and said, "This man just admitted to kidnapping a baby. I think he should be prosecuted for child trafficking. It's up to you now." Coco's father offered no resistance and was quickly taken away, leaving Coco's mother and brother standing there in shock. Henry was still stunned, speechless as he looked at me. With little time left in my life, I didn't want to waste any more on them. As I turned around, I heard a soft plea. "Jenny, we've wronged you, but we did raise you for 15 years. We never treated you badly, did we? Please, I beg you, save Coco she'll die without a new kidney. Coco's mom was kneeling on the ground, her face full of tears, looking at me eagerly. Sorry, I refuse. You adopted me with a purpose and wanted to abandon me after achieving your goal. In the end, you only kept me because my brother needed a playmate. These 15 years of my expenses, someone will hand them over in due time. Thinking you can buy my kidney with just that? Think again. So this is what they call motherly love? Pity, it's not for me. I grabbed Jack's hand and walked into the school building, but the moment we entered, I collapsed to the ground. Jenny. Jack said, panicking as he held my arm and lifted me up. Let's go, Jack. I don't want to waste my time on this nonsense anymore. Let's go home. I want to see Mom's photos. Jack's eyes were red with tears, but he didn't let them fall. Hearing my words, he nodded fiercely, carried me on his shoulders, and took me home. My condition worsened. The pain in my back kept me awake night and day. My appetite declined, and I lost weight rapidly. Sometimes, seeing the pain on Dad and Jack's faces, I regretted it a bit. Maybe it would have been better if they didn't find me. If they hadn't found me, at least they would think I was still alive. Now, they have to watch me die right in front of them. At night, I heard arguing in low voices outside my hospital room. Through the window on the door, I saw Jack and Henry standing not far away. When I walked out, Henry saw me and instantly his eyes turned red. Jenny, what happened to you? Do you need anything? I wearily waved him off, cutting him short. Jenny, I just want to apologize. I was out of my mind and hurt you. I didn't know what my dad and your dad said when they were drunk led to my mom's suicide. Coco overheard it. Coco's dad is in jail. Coco's mom had borrowed money from loan sharks to treat Coco. Now they can't repay the debt and have lost their house. Coco has no money and no matching kidney donor, waiting at home to die. Henry's face was full of pain and late remorse. But it's too late. I couldn't care less anymore. Alright, I get it. You saw me now, I'm not in the mood, and I don't want to spend my remaining time on irrelevant people. You should leave. Jenny, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong now. Can't you let me spend your final moments with you, for my mom's sake? I used to think my illness had spread to my ears. Do you even hear yourself? I am barely able to spend precious time with my family. What right do you have to that time? Jenny, don't say that. Henry's eyes were red, but I couldn't even be bothered to look at him anymore. Don't come back again. Seeing you might make me die faster. Didn't you hear her tell you to leave? Jack said coldly from the side. Ignoring Henry's pleas, I supported myself on the handrail and went back to my room. Henry still came every day, just standing at the door, never entering. Later, I began to be conscious less and less. One time when I opened my eyes, I felt strangely light. I guessed it was almost time. I made an excuse about wanting some cake and sent Jack away. Dad was out signing a contract, so he wasn't at the hospital. I struggled to the bathroom to tidy my hat and used foundation to cover my face so I'd look normal. With late-stage cancer, I was already in excruciating pain. I just wanted to spend a few more days feeling loved. I left a note for Dad and Jack. Then, I saw a light. In that light was a warm, soft hand that gently embraced me. At that moment, I felt motherly love.